Let's talk more about the Jaguars right now, of course, with the season opener coming up on Sunday against the Washington Commanders. And we bring in the man that's going to call the game on Fox and locally on Fox 30, along with Chris Myers. And that is former NFL running back Robert Smith, which means we'll talk some running backs along the way. But, well, we're excited to have you on the broadcast on Sunday, Robert. We'll get to the running backs in a moment. But what are your overall thoughts from the outside looking in? We cover this team day to day. We've been around it. It was a mess last year. When you come into this game Sunday, how do you view the Jacksonville Jaguars right now?
Well, it really was a mess. I mean, and it's been well documented. We don't need to go through the whole history. But, for me, everything I needed to know about the players on that Jacksonville Jaguars team was said in that Week 18 game against Indianapolis. That was a perfect opportunity for them to just fold and say, hey, we need to protect ourselves. Don't worry about going out and playing tough. Indianapolis, of course, with Carson Wentz, 2 games in a row, the Jaguars get Carson Wentz at quarterback. But they were win, you're in that type of situation. So that set up perfectly for an absolute blowout in favor of the Colts. And that obviously is not what you saw. Those guys went out there and they played hard and they won that game. And now with Doug Peterson coming in, I think his system, his experience, I think this is going to be a completely different football team. Obviously, he added the pieces offensively and defensively. Being a college football analyst as long as I had been up until this year, obviously had a chance to see Trevor Lawrence quite a bit at the college level and knew about his winning background and went through the struggles last year. But he's primed and ready to go. They got the pieces on the outside, but more importantly, I think the pieces up front that are going to allow him to be the quarterback that the Jaguars expected when they picked him number 1 overall.
Robert Smith with us, part of the broadcast team on Sunday in Washington or against the Commanders between the Jacksonville Jaguars and Washington on Fox 30. You mentioned Doug Peterson's name. I don't know. A lot of people ask us, right? They're like, okay, how are the Jags going to be? What do you think? Well, they do look improved. I think they're a lot better, quite frankly, if you look at them on paper. What I can't put my finger on, Robert, is how much will Doug make an impact? How much will that culture be a difference maker from a win-loss column? Sure, it feels better. They're confident. I don't think we'll have the mess that was here last year, but is that a tangible thing to equate to win sometimes in your experience playing a long time in the NFL and obviously all your days playing football?
No, there's no question about it, but it's not what the coaches know and what the coaches feel. It's what the players know. So it's what the coaches can teach the players and what the players can bring to it. And I think a big part of that is bringing in Brandon Sheriff on that offensive line. Tremendous right guard, 5-time Pro Bowler in his 8th season. And Rocher, the offensive line coach, they have a completely different mentality. And so I know that we're going to be talking about those running backs, and I love to do that. But I think that run game can be a tone setter. And I know that it's something that Trevor Lawrence has talked about himself, that they want to be more physical. So it's one thing to talk about what it is that you want to be, but you need to have the system in place to be able to go out and implement it. But then you have to go out and execute it. And you never know how that's going to look until you actually kick the ball off and get started.
Absolutely. We'll save Trevor for a moment. Let's get into the running backs, because to me, I've said this a lot, and the folks that are listening right now said, hey, I've heard you say that before, Brent. We'll see what Robert has to think about it. I think it's this incredible floor to ceiling potential in the running back room of the Jags. We don't know what to expect. There's a lot of unknown. Travis Etienne's never played it down, and James Robinson's coming off a significant injury, and so is Etienne. But, Robert, if these guys are who we think they are and can be, might be one of the best tandems in the AFC or the National Football League. That's my opinion. I want to hear yours.
Well, they got a pretty good tandem up there in Cleveland. I've been talking a lot about them. That's where I'm from. I definitely think that it's a tandem that's shaping up to be absolutely tremendous. You look at James Robinson, more of the banger type guy, but Travis Etienne, not just the ability to run off tackle, not that he can't run up inside, but I think what he can do catching the ball as well. And I think that is a tremendous addition. When you combine that, having Evan Ingram as that tight end, and then you have that solid run game, but also the ability to have a running back that can catch the ball out of the backfield. It's a quarterback's best friend. And when you're facing a defensive line like Washington, that's as stout as they are, that's as aggressive as they are, that get after the quarterback the way that they do, it's so helpful to have those types of weapons at the quarterback's disposal.
Is ETN a really good fit for Doug Peterson's offense? I mean, given the skill set, he's a terrific player from a fantasy football perspective, but also today's NFL perspective. And I think from what Doug did in Philadelphia, what do you think about the fit between Peterson's offense and ETN?
Absolutely. And look, Doug Peterson is a great coach, and you don't try and fit square pegs into round holes, but I think that he is a fit. But you also look at the skill set of a Travis Etienne and you say, hey, we got to find a way. And I know that he said this, we got to find a way to get him the ball, whatever that's going to be. So you take what the defense gives you a lot of times. And if they're playing the run game a certain way, they're inserting an eighth person into the box, that might be, you might use more creative ways to try and create mismatches on the outside, lining Travis up in the backfield and then motioning him out. So I think it's going to be a tremendous fit. But again, it's coaches being coachable in a sense that you don't want to be too stubborn in the way that you run your offense. But I think even what we've seen out of Doug Peterson in the past and his offense, I know he likes to use a lot of 2 tight end sets. I expect to see a lot of that, but I also expect him to be able to use Travis Etienne in a number of ways.
Robert Smith with us here for a couple more moments. He's got the call on Fox 30 this weekend, Jaguars Commanders, along with Chris Myers. And you talk about fit. Trevor Lawrence, Doug Peterson feel like a pretty good fit around here. Both really good guys and obviously at different stages of their lives. But it's interesting to note around here because we've had quarterbacks come through, Robert, and everybody gives up on them after a year when it doesn't go well. I don't sense anybody even nationally is giving up on Trevor Lawrence, even though he's coming off a 3-win year, 12 touchdowns, 17 picks. How do you see it?
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that people know what the situation was there in Jacksonville last year. I mean, it was just almost impossible. There were a number of drops, number one, out of that receiving core. So that certainly hurt his performance. But you see, again, the way that he played, and I'll point back to that Colts game again, the way that he played in that game. And I think that the all-around ability that he has, and I think his ability to run, you don't want to use it a whole lot. He's such a big target when he does take off and run, but even using those legs, he just wants to win. And because of his record in high school, his record at Clemson, and what he had to go through last year, I think he's going to be as motivated as he's ever been in his entire career.
Let's ask a Robert Smith question. You've been doing a lot of college, staying involved with the NFL, but in the broadcasting world, obviously enjoying it. Why the move to the NFL for you?
Well, it was a complete surprise to me, quite honestly. The inventory had been down for college football this season. I was probably only going to call 3 or 5 college games this year, and I would say, hey, we'll probably have some more NFL games for you this year. And I said, oh, that's great. They called me up a few days later, and they said, well, how would you like a full slate of NFL games? Thinking 15 games. I said, are you kidding me? I didn't want to get the swear in there, but it was unbelievable to me. And I had been calling 1 or 2 games a year over the last 3 or 4 seasons, but to have the opportunity to get into the NFL, to be doing this on opening weekend, tremendous storylines, obviously always throughout the NFL. It's an absolute honor. And I don't say that with any exaggeration at all. And I could not be more excited.
Looking forward to listening to you and watching the game on Fox 30 here in Jacksonville, along with Chris Myers. Have a fantastic season, man. Great catching up, and thanks for your insight.
All right. Thank you.